Some of these stones are over 400 years old. Can you imagine? And some of them, as you can go through, you'll see a broken, and you know that's from vandalism. You know what vandalism is? Yeah, we sure do, don't we? Some people have thrown paint on them over the years. It's terrible. If this was your relatives, you would not want that, would you? Someone break their stone? Absolutely not. There are over 267 stones that we can see here, that we have photographs of. And on the wall behind you is what they call a legend, or a list of all the stones that we could actually find and identify. But on the other side, in 2017, the city did ground penetrating radar. Do you know what that is? When the guy takes the machine and he's hunting for treasure or anomalies in the ground. You've seen that on TV and stuff, right? Well, they did that here, and we came up with about 430 unmarked graves, where their graves have been destroyed or have gone over the last 400 years. So what we did was we put little silver markers all along, and you can see whenever you see a silver marker, that is a burial that has lost its stone, or maybe never had a stone, because the Puritans, you know, they didn't believe really in stones. On the walkway, when you see a red brick, that means that's a burial underneath there. Okay? So we're going to walk over here, and we'll tell you a little bit about this wonderful place. Here we go. Well, welcome to the First Burial Ground again. And I wanted to explain to you the importance of this cemetery. Do you know the early founders, like in your logo, it says Captain Edward Johnson into the wilderness? Well, they feel that they're buried here on the earlier graves. It would be down by the fence down in that area there. They do not have any markers left, but maybe they're one of the little silver discs, the anomalies that we did find, right? Do you know what a flag means beside a grave? Yeah.
That means I think they were like a soldier.
They were in the military, weren't they? Yeah. From the earliest time, from Captain Edward Johnson right up until the Revolutionary War. This cemetery is from 1642, when the very first child, or the very first death in Woburn, because they discovered Woburn in 1640, but became a town in 1642. And in 1642, unfortunately, the first death was a little girl, 1 month old, Hannah Richardson, and she's buried in here. And in this cemetery are 15 Revolutionary War soldiers. Can you see the Revolutionary War marker? Yeah. Behind Mr. Bryan right here, that's his Revolutionary War marker. And that is for the grave of Daniel Thompson. Do you know who Paul Revere was, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. What is April 19th, 1775? First day of the Revolution is when they answered the alarm, right, Emma?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, but they were all British at that time, weren't they? This is when Americans were not called Americans at that time, right? But they had to make a decision in this country, didn't they? Gee, do we want to be part of England, or we want to be our own country? Daniel Thompson wanted to be part of our own country. It looks like a pyramid, doesn't it? It's called an obelisk because of the shape. What, hon? It's a Baldwin door lock? Well, maybe that's from him. I don't know. See the two little rocks in the front? Can you see on the hill? A rock on the left, rock on the right? If that was to be opened, that's the tomb, the entrance to the tomb, and there are between 13 and 18 Baldwin family members who are buried there. So that's really a tomb as opposed to a single grave that you see out here. Colonel Baldwin was a very famous man. He was from North Woburn. You know what Stop and Shop is? Oh yeah, he's coming down, he's hunting. He comes and visits us every day. Aren't you lucky? He comes in the morning. Who do you think he's looking for? Ventilation of a ship out, and it was attacked in 1898. The ship is the USS Maine. So this monument is here to honor all of our military men and women who served in all of the wars, from you see in your shirt, Captain Edward Johnson, to Iraq and Afghanistan, and current war on terror. So that's who is on our wall that we'll go and visit in a little bit. But right now, the USS Maine is one of the earliest memorials in here. In 1913 it went in, and it represents the first battleship the United States ever built in Maine, the USS Maine. And in 1898, the Americans went to Cuba. You know what Cuba is? It's below Florida, right? We go to Disney World. It's a different country, correct? So went down there, they sent this ship to protect American citizens because there was trouble with Spain. And what happened is one night, the men on this ship, they put a bomb underneath, and while they were sleeping, they blew up this ship. And all the Marines and sailors, almost 300 of them died at the bottom of Havana Bay. That was the start of the Spanish-American War in 1898. And what happened was a very short war, thank goodness. And a year later, they decided, the United States, to go over back to Havana Harbor and bring up this beautiful ship, because it was our first battleship. And when they did that, you see the number 10 on here? It's the 10th artifact that they brought up from the ocean. And when they did that, we were allowed to buy this. The businessmen bought it in 1913, and it's been here ever since. So this is to honor the Spanish-American War veterans. Everybody out loud. Read. That's the most important thing on there. Liberty, live on the actions of its defenders. What do you think that means? Liberty, what does that mean? To have liberty. To have freedom. And what do you think actions of its defenders? The lives of the men who did and served and saved the Union Army. This is the Civil War statue. That's a Union soldier. What does the U.S. mean on his belt? Oh, you're so smart. I can't stand it. It's awesome. United States.
My name is Scott, and I work here for the water department. I've worked here for 20 years. I started here right after high school. And what you are standing in right now is commonly known throughout the city of Woburn as the old pump station at Horn Pond. Now the room that you can see through the opening in the brick through there was first constructed in 1871 and completed in 1873. And the reason for that room that you see was down in the basement was a small coal-fired steam engine. They would use coal to create steam, and that steam engine, the purpose for it, was to pull water out of the ground. They would pump water out of the ground like a well, and they would pump it up to the top of Horn Pond Mountain. I don't know if any of you have ever walked up there before, but there's an old reservoir up there. So they would fill the reservoir up with water, and then gravity would take over and send that water out to the city, to all the different houses and businesses, so everybody could cook and do construction and shower, everything they needed to do. In 1908, the population in Woburn grew to the point where that small engine down in the basement couldn't keep up with the demand. So they had to come up with a new idea for the city, for the residents. So you're looking at the new idea that they came up with in 1908. In 1908, they added this room on, so you're standing in an addition. You can see they knocked down some of the wall and put in that brick archway. And they brought this pump all the way from Dayton, Ohio. Everybody knows where Ohio is, right? Yes. All right. So if you jumped in your car right now and drove to Ohio on the highway, it would take you 12 hours straight. So all these pieces and parts came on wagons pulled by horses. There's a lot of different things on the wall, especially over in that corner if you went over that way. You see a lot of different wrenches. So this pump has its own special tool set, custom just for this pump, for all the different nuts and bolts all over it. Over the door that you walked in, you see the snowshoes. What do you think they use snowshoes for? Right, so you wear, in the wintertime when the snow is really deep, you put them on your feet and you can walk on the top of the snow, so you don't get stuck. A couple other things you guys know about the Titanic, right? 365 days a year, even nights and weekends and holidays and everything like that. There's a lot of different things, as you can tell, that we watch here at the control room for the water treatment plant. One of the things we pay attention to are the chlorine levels and all the different chemical levels that we use to inject into the water. You're going to see that in a minute when we head down back.
Wait,
No, in the drinking water. Another important thing that we pay attention to are the water tanks all around the city. Does everybody know where Library Field is?
yes.
You know that big brown water tank up on the hill that you can see? Right, so that's Rag Rock water tank. So that's a 4 million gallon water tank.
I've been there before.
Another thing we pay attention to is the weather a lot. If we get a lot of rain, where does all that water go? What do you think? It goes down into the ground and into the pond. So if all the water goes into the ground, that means that we can pump more water. And the last thing you can see before we head down back, you can see all the different security cameras, right? It's very important in the middle of the night when no one's here that we have all sorts of cameras around the water treatment plant and the water tanks so that no one's down here messing around or breaking in or doing anything they shouldn't be doing. So everything calls out, everything goes to a computer and calls my cell phone in the middle of the night. So we know that there's a problem down here. We're going to head down back, down the hallway to the chemical room. All right, you ready? All right. So this is the chemical room, as you can tell. You can see and smell, we keep a lot of different chemicals in here. What does it smell like in here? Chlorine, that's right. It smells like a pool. That's because behind me is chemical sodium hypochlorite. That is chlorine, bleach. That's what we use to disinfect the water. We use small amounts of chlorine that we leave 24 hours a day. And what that chlorine does is it disinfects the water and makes it safe for you to drink so that you don't get sick. A couple different other chemicals behind you. You see sodium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide is very dangerous for your eyes and your skin, but we use it in small amounts to control the pH level of the water. November 26, 2006, I got sprayed in the face with sodium hydroxide, and I didn't have my glasses on. I got rushed into Boston, and I had to live in Boston for a couple days, and for about 10 hours of my life, the doctors thought that I was 100% blind for the rest of my life. But my eyes healed, I lost 20% vision in my right eye, so I changed that up now with contacts to kind of make up for it a little bit. So what do you think this is? So this does two different things. This is a mask to protect my breathing, right? You can see the filters. And then what else do you think this does? Protects my eyes, right? So if I put this on over my head and over the mirror, and I have to get sprayed in the face, would my eyes be all right? Yeah. Right, so this is important to me. Whenever I'm in here working, I either use this or I wear goggles with a face shield, right? Because this will do the same thing, just not for the breathing side. And we also have chemical-resistant gloves and suits that we wear in case we think we're going to get any more hands or anything like that. We're going to head into the filter room next. I'll show you where the filters are. So you guys are standing in the filter room. This is where we filter all the water that comes from the wells at the water treatment plant. We added this room on in 2011. And you can see behind me the filters. How many are there? There's 3, that's right. And you can tell which filters we're using. If you look at the top of each filter, there's 2 red lights and a green light. It should be filters 3 and filter 2 are red and filter 1 is green. Is that right? Okay, so the 2 filters that are red are the filters that we're using right now. The water gets pumped through the filter, goes through all the sand and media and gravel inside, and when it comes out at the bottom, it's nice and clean. And if you look around, you see a lot of different labels. A lot of questions I get asked are all the different labels on the pipes. So raw water is the water that we come out of the ground before we treat it. And then it goes through the filters, and then it gets treated with the chemicals that we talked about, and then it's called finished water. Finished water means it's done, it's ready to be used, it's ready to be consumed.
All right, sure. Let me explain what's here first, okay, so you know what you're looking at. So if we start in this corner over here, this, on this section on is our World War II soldiers and women. This table represents World War II. And what you're looking at is a jacket with a white scarf on it. Can you see it? That represents, that represents a Woburn soldier, Mr. Audette, Al Audette, who just died recently, a couple of months ago at 100 years old. He was a great guy. And he flew planes. He was a navigator in a plane. And what happens is his plane got hit, and this is World War II now, so 1941 to 1945. Some of your great-grandfathers would have been in World War II, or your great-great-grandfathers in some cases. Mr. Al Audette, he got shot down. His plane got shot down by the Germans. And when he did, the scarf that you see around his neck actually is his parachute. So what happens is when he came out, he had to have a parachute, he landed in the water, he took a piece of it to save, to remember the time that his life was saved by the parachute. And this here is a nurse's uniform, and that's actual blood that's on there from World War II. And she took care of the wounded soldiers. And that up here.
You can see it afterwards,
You'll see it when we get
okay?
up. You can all see it when we get up.
Oh my God.
You listening?
Angelo, cut it out. What?
And up here, and up on the wall, over the fireplace, these are men that died in World War II. There's many sets of brothers here. Here's 2 sets of brothers. Remember I told you about Foley Beach and swimming and everything and working in the tanneries? These 2 brothers, the McHugh brothers, they lived down that way. And one was killed 1 year, and then the mother died. Are you all listening?
Yes.
I shouldn't hear anybody. And the mother, she got 1 letter that her son died, and then not a year later, her other son died. So it must have been very hard for her, don't you think? Very painful. Do you know where Ferrulo Field is up in Mount Woburn? That's named after my uncle, Jackie Ferrulo. He got killed in World War II, and that's him right there. Real handsome. He was the captain of the baseball team in 1939 in Woburn High School, and he was a great artist also. Around here, this is World War I. And World War I represents 1916 to 1919. And many Woburn men served in World War I. And this gentleman, his shirt, he's wounded also. You'll see the blood on his uniform when you come around. And this here is actually one of the bowler knives that they would have carried. Do you know Mr. Johnson that was in the pumping station, how he wore a special mask? And the mask was what? To protect him, right, from chemicals or whatever. If you stand up and hold that for me, can you, right there, it's a gas mask, honey. Yeah, hold the green part too, okay? Yeah, and you can hold it up as high as you can so they can see. This is the gas mask they would have worn in World War I. And it's a big difference, don't you think? Big difference. The horses, dogs, all the animals wore this also in World War I when they fought over in France. Thank you, honey, you can put it down, thank you. And then over here is Civil War veterans from Woburn. And then behind you are the ones in the Civil War. You know I told you about Roscoe Bryant and his brother who died in the prison camps? Those are soldiers from the Civil War. That's an actual dress. In the back is the Civil War uniform, a Civil War dress, 1860. And on the back, in the back room, you're going to see the Revolutionary War. We talked about Count Rumford is in his lobster back. That's his That's a jacket there. That's Revolutionary War in the back, the women. And then you see an actual cradle. And on the right of the tannery where the hide is, we talked about it. And this here is the Civil War uniform right here. So do you want to hear about Sergeant Stubby? Want to hear about Sergeant Stubby? All right, I'll tell you. All right, ready? What is it? First of all, it's a dog. This is a Boston Bull Terrier.
Oh my God.
And the Bull Terrier, World War I. Okay? He was a war hero, a war dog, but he was a stray dog. So when the soldiers in 1916 were practicing in the field down at Yale University in Connecticut, what they did was they were drilling and drilling, getting ready to go overseas to France to fight in the war of World War I. This little dog kept following them around, and it was like, okay, no one gets no home. So one of the soldiers took an interest in him and said, well, we'll take care of him. So that's what they did. So for weeks and weeks, this dog lived with all the soldiers training in World War I. So finally, they get their orders. You know what? You now have to go overseas to France to fight. What are they going to do with this poor little dog? He has nowhere to go, right?
Yeah, with it.
So anyway, they took him and they snuck him on the ship. So they're out to sea and going to France, and all of a sudden the dog starts barking, and the captain of the ship captain of the ship says, who has a dog on this boat? And they were like, they had to fess up that they had him, correct? So the dog, you know, he went before the captain, and the soldier had to salute the captain. And guess who else saluted? Captain Stubby. They had taught him how to salute. So the captain was so impressed, this dog is so smart, they said, you know what, you can keep him and take him with the rest of the soldiers. So he went on to France. This dog would fight in 17 battles in World War I, actual battles. And one time he got wounded, he received the Purple Heart, and one time he got gassed with the gas that mask would have protected. They didn't have them on the dogs and horses then. So what happened was, you want us to know how he saved his soldiers' lives, hundreds of them? What happened is they're in the battlefield and they're fighting. And what developed was, the dog now, he could understand, he understood the smell of the gas, because he was gassed already. But he could also, do dogs have good hearing?
No.
Great hearing. No, they have great hearing. So the dogs could hear the whistling of the rockets coming in with that poison mustard gas. That's what they called it. So he barked and went all around and warned the soldiers, put your mask on, the gas is coming in. So when they did that, he saved the lives of hundreds of his soldiers that he saved. Do you want to know how he captured a German spy? He captured a German spy. The German spy was in the woods with a machine gun, and he was waiting for the American soldiers to come, and then he was going to gun them down. The dog grabbed him. Where do you think he grabbed him? No, he bit him on the bum. He grabbed him so hard that he pulled him to the ground, and then the Americans came by. The Americans came by, and then they captured him as a POW. But the dog saved, he received a medal for that. This dog lived to be 10 years old. He died in 1926, and they were so proud of him. See, he has a jacket on. See, he has a military jacket. And the Y stands for Yankee Division. And those are all of his medals that he won.